Nowhere Patrol is a relentless boss rush style game that definitely gives off Cuphead vibes, but does a nice job of setting it apart with almost bullet hell gameplay style. The bosses here are just silly. You fight things like a walking furnace, a lighter, and a trumpet with wings, but don't be fooled by their lighthearted designs, because each boss is incredibly tough and comes packing a ton of different attacks, often filling the screen with bullets and changing up their patterns entirely when you drain their life bar. The life bar system here is crazy. Unlike Cuphead, each boss has a life bar that you could see, but it's misleading. Draining the bar does not kill the boss, it just leads them into their next form. And you never know how many forms they have until they're dead. Some enemies have as few as 2, but others have as much as 5, with the last boss having about 13 or so. It is just nuts, and this adds a ton of tension to each fight, as you never really know when the fight is going to be over. One of my favorite moments was when I was facing a winged bell with a mustache on top of a castle. He was just so insanely difficult, and I just kept dying, but making it a little farther with each attempt. Eventually, after 3 life bars, he blew up, and I threw my arms up so excited that I finally took this beast down, and then the floor came to life and killed me. The controls here are simple. You can shoot in 6 directions, not directly up or down, but you can do the diagonals, and you have 2 specials and an invincible dash. Well, almost invincible. Most enemies will mix knives in with their attacks. These can't be dashed through. And the dash system is really cool here, and you absolutely must master it to have any chance of success, but the game also rewards you with bonuses like extra health and free damage to enemies for perfectly timed consecutive dashes, which even further incentivizes you to play well. The special attacks come in 2 varieties, one offensive that lets out a big damage attack, and a defensive one that puts up a shield and lets you absorb some health. Controls are simple, but are perfectly suited to the fast gameplay and extremely responsive. The music here is great as well and adds to the tension and excitement of each fight. The gameplay structure is perfect. There is no world map or anything like that to get in the way of the action. You beat a boss, you move on to the next boss, respawns are quick, death is frequent, but this is a game that will have your heart racing every second you are playing it. Nowhere Patrol is talked about literally nowhere, and that is an absolute crime. This is a fantastic game with tight controls, tough gameplay, and extremely well-designed bosses. Any fan of Cuphead or boss rush style games absolutely needs to play this, and for the full price of $5, just go and buy it now. You will be glad you did. Steel Assault is a crazy action game that does not waste time kicking things up. From the moment you press start, you are thrust into a city with enemies running at you in every direction, and it just literally never lets up. The moment-to-moment gameplay is insane. You just go from one action-packed scene to the next. Let's just take the second level, for example. You run through a swampy forest with loads of enemies and tricky jumps. Make it to the halfway point and you're confronted by a giant flame-throwing robot that you have to fight along with platforms. I died on him a bunch, but after finally beating him, you get thrown next to a river with no way across. The only way to go is up, so you climb the trees and the branches just start falling. You eventually hit a dead end, and the branch you are on falls and becomes a raft, ferrying you down the river. Of course, this is no lazy river stroll. Enemies are coming you from every direction. You have bombs falling from trees, fishes jumping and shooting at you, and flying drones launching napalm at you. When you finally make it to the shore, a giant laser-shooting robot dog is waiting for you. The whole game is one giant series of insane action-packed scenes. It is tough and relentless, but you have the tools you need to succeed. You get this awesome electric whip that is really satisfying to use, and you have the zip line. It shoots out in both directions, and as long as there are walls to attach to on both ends, you could use this for all sorts of tricky platforming. It is a really cool gimmick that works really well. And not only do we need it for platforming, but it's also key to dodging tricky boss attacks. Like for example, you're on top of a helicopter and the enemy shoots napalm at the top of the helicopter, so you gotta use your zip line to go underneath it to dodge the napalm, and then back and forth. It's just really, really cool stuff. It's a short game. My first playthrough on normal took me a little more than an hour, and that includes the tons of times I died, but that is a solid hour of non-stop action, and the short length makes it one of those games that you just want to revisit over and over again to relive all the amazing moments that this game offers. Bleed is what happens when you miss Contra with The Matrix. I first discovered this game on Xbox 360 Arcade. It was one of the earliest indie titles I played, and a perfect representation of just how incredible the indie game scene is. There are just so many awesome things in this game. First, the controls. Although it's a side scroll, you have dual stick aim. The right stick shoots in any direction, and you're going to need that because enemies appear everywhere at all times. You also get this awesome triple jump, but it's really more of a dodge as you can jump in any direction. Meanwhile, holding the right trigger enters you into bullet time. The bullet time mechanic here is absolutely necessary. The screen gets flooded with enemies and bullets and they move pretty fast, so triggering the bullet time levels the playing field. There is a meter, but it recharges pretty quickly, so you're never too long without it. The gameplay here is just phenomenal. You just run from one awesome set piece to the next. 1 minute you're scaling a building while a helicopter is shooting at you from outside. Another, you're running along a high-speed train, dodging enemies and tunnels, and then you find yourself inside a giant dragon's stomach fighting his organs. It just never lets up. There's always something to shoot and not a second to catch your breath. There are a ton of bosses here as well, at least 2 per level. The boss fights here are so much fun. All of them have a wide variety of attacks, and they get pretty crazy. Some of these fights feel like a bullet hell shmup. The feeling of slowing down time as you weave in and out of bullet patterns is just incredibly satisfying. It makes you feel like a total badass. The setup for some of these fights is awesome also. Like you're in a train and there's a giant robot stabbing you from the roof. You keep running and dodging his claws, and eventually he rips the roof off and the fight begins. Stuff like that is just cool. There are a bunch of difficulty options, ranging from very easy to very hard. I played on normal and found the challenge to be fair. I died a lot, but you have unlimited continues and frequent checkpoints, so you're always thrown right back into the action. Bleed was released on Xbox 360 in 2012. I fell in love with it then, and it is just as awesome as I remember. This sells on Steam for $5. It's short, but for that price, it is in steel. Definitely check it out if you want some incredible non-stop action. As far as fast-paced action games go, it doesn't get much better than Soda Crisis. If you love a good run and gun and are watching this footage, you're probably thinking that this game looks pretty cool, and you'd be right. But watching it does not do justice to how good this game feels. This game feels so good to control. Everything is fast and super responsive. Your character moves fast, has an invincible dodge, a grappling hook, and can even run up and down walls. Control here is so smooth, and the levels are designed for maximum mobility, with plenty of amazing moments where you are running up and down walls, jumping around enemies, and swinging with your grappling hook. It is just awesome. The weapons equally feel great. You unlock a ton of weapons as you progress, and each one has a million different ways you can modify them to fit your playstyle. And the balance here is just simply phenomenal. This isn't like Contra, where you just grab the spread and ignore everything else. The starting pistols can be just as effective as your grenade launcher, depending how you upgrade them, and it adds an awesome amount of variety to the gameplay. The upgrade system here is great. You get a certain amount of batteries to power your upgrades and can swap how they are used to change your character's weapons and sub-weapons. And to further add variety, there are a ton of cool vehicles to ride in. My favorite was the Flappy Bird vehicle. It literally looks like a robot Flappy Bird and has a machine gun for a mouth. It was just so much fun, playing a little mini version of Flappy Bird while also blowing up everything in front of me. And that's what's so magical about this game. It takes things that shouldn't be that much fun and just makes them amazing. The first vehicle you get to ride is a forklift. It's just a regular forklift that can drive forward and jump. But as you speed through, you are barreling into enemies and blowing up everything you touch. It is just awesome. Just like the platforming, where the game constantly throws new things at you to mix up the gameplay. One level has you zip lining around, shooting enemies, while another might have you floating on an umbrella, dodging spikes and riding air currents. Soda Crisis is simply one of the most fun games I have ever played. It looks good, feels even better, and is non-stop action from start to finish. And this is a game that just everyone needs to play. It's only about 3 hours long, but those are going to be 3 incredible hours. Foregone is a linear action hack and slash with fast-paced combat and lots of loot to collect and upgrade. The loot system is like a Diablo. Enemies are constantly dropping things, and there's a good amount of gear to attain. You get weapons, armor, and accessories to enhance your stats, and of course, they come in all different rarities and can be upgraded in the hub world. I think the balance on the equipment is really good here. I am the type of gamer who usually settles in on one weapon pretty quickly and sticks to it through the entire game. But in this game, I found myself switching back and forth between all the weapons constantly. They were all fun to use and feel unique. The loot system makes it so you're always finding more powerful weapons, which really encourage you to constantly switch between them, and I like that. You have two weapons equipped at all times, one melee and one ranged. The ranged weapons have limited ammo, but you gain back one bullet for every melee attack you land, so you're always going back and forth between the two playstyles. You also get some skills that have their own meter and are recharged through attacking, and of course, an invincible dodge. Weapons here are cool and range from traditional stuff like short and long swords to some unique weapons like the gunchucks, which are these cool nunchucks that let out explosions as you swing them. Combat here is fast-paced and really fun. There are always tons of enemies to kill, and there's a really nice flow of dodging, attacking, and using skills. Level design has enemies everywhere, so you are constantly in the action. It is linear, but there are some secrets to uncover if you explore a little bit. There is also a waypoint system if you want to revisit old areas, but it is never necessary to do that to progress. Each level ends in a boss. These are always huge monsters with tons of health. They usually start out simple enough, but as the fight progresses, they unleash new attacks, and the lower their health gets, the faster and more frantic they become. It ends a really fun dynamic, because just as you feel like you learn their attacks, they start to switch it up and go crazy on you, keeping you on your toes through the whole fight. Foregone is an intense action platformer that doesn't really ever get talked about. The combat is fast and fluid, the loot system keeps things fresh, the bosses are intense, and there are always lots of enemies to fight. Definitely check it out if you want a fun action game. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. There are so many amazing games out there that fly under the radar. I release a video every 2 weeks trying to highlight some of these games. If there is a genre of game you want me to cover, leave a comment down below. And be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos and any more hidden gems.